Hey guys, it's Kevin again. This is gonna review for the series premiere, finally a series premiere of Better Call Saul. Now, if you guys don't know, this was my most anticipated new show of the mid-season. I was so looking forward to it. I could not wait to see it. I must say something to you guys. I have seen Breaking Bad. I've seen the first two episodes of Breaking Bad, and I've seen the finale. Other than that, I've never really watched Breaking Bad. Now, I know what you guys are saying. Why the hell have you done that? I was a very different person. I once told myself I was going to binge the entire show. I never did. But what I've seen of it, I absolutely love it. I think it's a great show, and I was definitely looking forward to this show because I thought this show was going to make up for me not watching Breaking Bad. So I watched the premiere, and I gotta say, guys, this show's already off to a fantastic start. This is for season one, episode one, Uno, and this show is already off to a fantastic start. I absolutely loved this premiere, and things are definitely going to get interesting. I love that it's a two-night premiere as well because the cliffhanger they leave it on at the end of this episode, I need to see it like right now. So I'm very happy that I can see it again tomorrow night because the show's already awesome. Now, I will say that it got me a little while to actually figure out if I like the show or not because the way the show starts off is very off-putting. It's like weird. First of all, it's in black and white, and we see these gloved hands making cinnamon rolls, and the business is in Omaha. And basically, um, I guess what this trying to show is that when Saul, the final scene of Saul in Breaking Bad, he had told Walt that his life was over, and best case scenario, he'll be managing a Cinnabon in Omaha, Nebraska. Well, that's basically what's happened. It's a Cinnabon, and we see the manager, and sure enough, it's Saul. He's got a mustache, and his name tag reads Gene, and he's watching a mixer blend up some dough. I gotta say, at first when I saw him, I'm like, is that Walter White? Because literally, he looks like Walt in the future. I don't know why, but he looks like Walt. So he wipes down the tables and then the ovens, sweeps up the place, and then carries a promotional sign out into the mail. He looks around, notices a guy looking at him. The guy gets up and walks over, and Saul starts to panic, but the guy passes him by and goes out into the mail to hug someone. And he wasn't even looking at him. This all takes place in black and white, and Homie pours himself a drink, watches a cable shopping commercial, and he switches channel to a local weather. He goes to look outside, sees the reported snow flurries coming down, closes blinds, goes to a little hole in his closet, pulls out his shoebox and grabs a videotape out of it. He pops it into the player, and we see it's a series of commercials for his law firm and himself saying, "Better call Saul." Now, I like what this is showing. It's showing what happened to Saul basically after Breaking Bad, and we know what's happened to him. But at the same time, it was kind of interesting. Now, I will say, since a lot of people had a lot of problems with the show, they thought that Walt and Jesse were going to be on it. Guys, just know this is a very different show than Breaking Bad. Even though this is going to have a lot of ties to Breaking Bad, especially they show that at the end, even though it's going to have a lot of that, it's very different from Breaking Bad. You're not going to see Walt, you're not going to see Jesse, at least for this season. Vince Gilligan said there is a possibility we could see them in season 2, but at least for this season, you're not going to see them right now. So a judge waits in a New Mexican courtroom, and this is then we basically flash back to when Saul wasn't Saul, when his name was Jimmy McGill, when he was basically a lawyer. And I don't know if it's the late 80s or the 90s. I think it's like the late 80s. I can't say exactly, but it's in his past, and I definitely really enjoyed that. So because that's where most of the shows can take place. So a judge waits in a New Mexican courtroom. The gallery is full, and three young men wait at one table, and it's utterly silent. The judge is checking his watch. He looks around and nods to the bailiff, who walks out. And Jimmy is in the bathroom rehearsing his remarks. The bailiff finds him there and gives him a sort of like that. And he comes back into the courtroom and says, "Oh, to be 19 again." He says he remembers 19 and talks to the jury. The second we met him, I was laughing hysterically. I already love his character. He's so funny. I didn't realize how funny he was, and I love that about his character. He says it feels like summer will last forever. He says you also recall that you had an underdeveloped 19-year-old brain, and says he made plenty of stupid decisions. He says if they were in church, he'd get an amen. He says these three are knuckleheads. They did a dumb thing. He said no one got hurt, and the prosecution keeps saying it was criminal trespass, but says it's a bit of a reach. And Jimmy says these three young men are near honor students and just want a little bananas. He says they don't deserve to have their bright futures doomed by never to be replaced lapse in judgment. He tells the jury they're bigger than that. He rests his case. The prosecutor stands and pulls a TV on a stand over in front of the jury, pops in a videotape, and we see the three idiots taping themselves. And this is such a funny scene. I mean, just these guys are idiots. They're cutting up a caviter at a funeral home. They take turns and then argue who gets to go next. They lop off the head, wave at the camera. One dares to the other to stick his dick into the neck hole, and Jimmy's complaining to the clerk that he only got to $700 and says he should get $700 each, and the check is made out to his name, and basically she says it was his choice to try them together, and he says no more pro bono work. He reminds her that they had sex with a severed head, And he curses, and she says have a nice day, storms out of the courthouse and out to his car. So very funny already. I already really enjoyed it. So, and it took me, I think, from then to there to actually think if I actually like the show, because when we saw the beginning, I'm like, I don't know if I like it, but then after that, I'm like, yeah, I love it. So she said, basically, we see a nice caddy, but it's not his. His is a yellow beater. He gets a call and tries to calm down, and he says the law office and pretends to be someone else, and he does a woman's voice with a British accent. That was hilarious. Makes a plan to meet the client later. Cranks his rust bucket, drives off in a hail of gray smoke, and the parking attendant demands $3, but says he's valid all day. And then we see Mike Ehrmantraut, who, of course, was a huge character on Breaking Bad. I knew that. I know that he eventually ends up hunting down Saul, and he's like, I know that he what's his description? Let me go to this for a second. Saul's private investigator, so he eventually becomes that, and I like seeing him in this show because I already really think that he's gonna be a very interesting character. And I definitely feel like we're gonna see him more because they show him a lot in this scene. He tells him, plus they showed this in the previews, so we all knew this was coming, but I still really enjoyed it. He tells him he has to either pay or go get more stickers, and Jimmy backs up and yells at the guy that is the employee of the month. He meets Craig and his wife, and she asks why he thinks he needs a lawyer, and Jimmy says, of course, he's innocent, doesn't look for guilty clients to represent. He says all he knows is what he read in the paper, and says when $1.6 million go missing from the county coffers, they usually go after the treasurer. So Craig says getting a lawyer would make him look guilty, but Jimmy says getting arrested is what makes you look guilty, and he tells him they'll arrest him and stick him in a room with a cop that promises to help him straighten things out, but then sticks it to him, and Jimmy offers him a letter of engagement, says as soon as he signs it, he can get started on the defense strategy. So Craig goes to sign it, Jimmy's excited, but then his wife stops him and says they should sleep on it, and he tells them no rush. Then she reminds her husband that they have to go pick up the kids. They thank him for their advice, and he hands them something with his number on it. They head out, and you don't really know who he's working for at this point. I like that. I like that's kind of like mysterious. You don't know who he's working for. You don't know what he's exactly doing, and I like that. So he ends up making calls as he goes, and he literally does one of the dumbest things ever. Like he's driving a car and he's talking on the phone. Why would you ever do this? Like, what good is this going to get you? What outcome could this have on you? It's not going to end well. I mean, seriously. He's not thinking. He's distracted. He's reading off a credit card number in order to order classy looking yet cheap flowers. He says it should be Dear Betsy and Craig, and then stop when he's told his car was declined. He's distracted, literally hits a skater. Another skater runs up, freaks out. Obviously, you knew something bad was going to happen. You knew something bad was going to happen. You knew that he was going to hit someone because, I mean, you don't talk and drive. It's that simple. Just like you don't text and drive, you don't talk on the phone and drive unless you have a headset, which they did not have back in the day. So come on, Jimmy, just think next time. He says he videoed the whole thing, and the guy he hit and says he didn't mean to do it. Jimmy begs them not to call the cops, and they ask how he'll make things right. He says he doesn't know and asks what he can do to make it right. The guy he hits says he doesn't know, then asks for $500. Jimmy kicks him, and the guy stands up. He tells him 9.6 for effort, but 0 for choice of victim. He tells him he's a lawyer, and they need to pay him for breaking his windshield, and they run off, and basically, because they don't have any money. So Jimmy heads to this Asian nail salon, and basically this is also a tie into Breaking Bad because I guess in an episode of Breaking Bad he told Walt to buy a place like this to launder his money. So we see why he did that because he wants this Asian nail salon. And he greets New York, and she asks why he worked for the guys that did that to the dead guy. He goes to the back where his office is located in the laundry room of the salon, and he makes a face, then checks his voicemail and hears he has 0 messages. And he looks at his stack of past due bills and one envelope interests him, and he opens it, and it's a letter and a check for $26,000. And he tears the check into little pieces, makes a face as he does so, and he buttons his suit as he waits for the elevator, takes a deep breath and steps inside, and he heads to the offices and we finally realize who he's working for. He's working for Hamlin, and McGill. That's where he works. And he asks the recipient for Lord Vader. She asks him to wait, but he doesn't. He heads upstairs and greets everyone. He passes by name, then goes into the conference room, yells out to Hamlin that he won't have Hamlin meddling with the forces of nature. Howard and Kim ask what he wants. He lays down the pile of check scraps, and he asks what the 26K was all about. And he says it's for Chuck. It's not for him. So he says 1/3 of this place is owed to Chuck, who Chuck is his brother, and Chuck is a character that we haven't met before, and I like his character. Howard says more money will be coming. Jimmy says they owe about $17 million to Chuck and says to not spend penny anti-checks, and he tells them to do right and cash him out. And Howard asks if Chuck wants to withdraw from the firm, and Jimmy says he's doing what is his best interests. So Howard says he thinks Chuck is going to lick this, and they have his office and recipients and receptionist waiting, and Jimmy says they can let a jury figure it out. He yells that that they will atone, and then says it's Ned Beatty from Network. He slams out of the room, and Howard follows him out and hands him this month's fillings. So you can definitely see that there's some rivalry between Jimmy and Chuck. It definitely seems like Chuck is not better than Jimmy, but just he's more liked than Jimmy. Like Jimmy's not exactly liked by everyone, but Chuck is, very good with what he does, and just Chuck, it seems like he's more equipped for this job. So Jimmy says Chuck doesn't work here and he's not going to help him establish a paper trail, and he doesn't work there. So, he doesn't understand why he's getting the money and he's not. So Howard says in their line of work, you can get too caught up in whining and forget to listen to your heart. He tells Jimmy to give Chuck his love and then he walks away. And Jimmy is annoyed to see Betsy and Craig, his near clients, waiting for Howard in the lobby. He gets in the elevator, goes back downstairs, kicks the crap out of a trash can to take out his frustrations. So funny. He's kind of immature, I gotta say. Jimmy's not exactly, I wouldn't say he's not really a likable character because he's kind of stuck up and kind of into himself, but, I mean, he could share the money with his brother. He could do that. I mean, that's what they could do, but he's not exactly a likable character, but it's so funny to see him just, like, kick the shit out of a trash can. It was so funny to see, and that was hilarious. So he goes into the parking deck, finds Kim smoking, he stands beside her, and then takes her cigarette for a puff, and he sticks it back in between her lips, and she says she can't do what he wants, and I thought right away, love interest. I really did think that. I don't know why, but I thought that she was giving me his love interest. And she stubs out her smoke and heads back inside. She sets the trash can back up, puts the lid back on, and I kind of feel like, I don't know why, I just feel like her and Jimmy are going to start some sort of relationship. I don't know. I'm thinking because Breaking Bad, they're trying to have parallels to Breaking Bad. I know they said this is not like Breaking Bad, but my friend who actually has seen some of Breaking Bad told me there are a lot of parallels to Breaking Bad. So I'm kind of thinking like Kim might end up becoming like Skylar. I don't know, but we'll see. Jimmy grabs a mail out of the mailbox and leaves his keys, phone, and walk inside the box. He heads inside a house, and there's a typewriter clacking, and then Chuck calls out, asking Jimmy if he grounded himself. And he lights a camping lantern and checks the ice chest, and he goes to drain and then dumps in more ice. He unloads some food and dumps the rest in the ice chest, and he tells Chuck to stop putting bacon on the list and says he's going to poison himself. And Chuck hands him this letter to get translated into Finnish, and it's a letter about magnetic fields to a researcher. And he hands Jimmy this coffee can, tells him to reimburse himself, and he asks Chuck if they can talk. He holds up the lantern to Jimmy's face and asks if he's okay. He tells Chuck he has to cash out of the firm because he's not working there, and Chuck says he's going to get better, and Jimmy says sure, and you can see that Chuck thinks that Jimmy's being very unreasonable, which he kind of is. He is being kind of unreasonable. Chuck says he's proceeding from false principles and building a premise on quicksand, and Chuck says what if they have to liquidate the firm to pay him out. He says people could lose their jobs, including Jimmy's friend Kim, and Jimmy reminds Chuck that he built that firm. So you do see that Jimmy does care about people. At first I thought, Jimmy's kind of unlikable, but here you see that Jimmy does care about people. Like, Kim is his friend. I guess the whole thing about the love interest thing is gone. I don't know why I thought that, but, Kim's his friend, so Jimmy reminds Chuck that he built that firm, and he tells Chuck that he's going under and says he's only getting $700 each, and Chuck says it's noble work, and Jimmy says he may as well sell plasma on Skid Row, and says money is beside the point. Jimmy says money is the point, and Chuck says do good work and the clients will come. Jimmy says Chuck is broken, he can't support both of them. Chuck says he never asked him to provide for him, and Jimmy says the day of reckoning, and I thought this was a very good line, the day of reckoning is here, and he's going to be out on the street with electromagnetism raining down. And basically what he's saying is that Chuck is going to be very rich and, have very successful life, while Jimmy is going to end up poor and everything, kind of foreshadowing his future. I mean, Jimmy right now, you see he's kind of poor, he's not in very good shape, he's working at a Cinnabon. I mean, he's really not doing very well in his life, so I feel like that's kind of like foreshadowing what's going to happen there. So Chuck hands him a check for $857. He says it's a weekly stipend. Then Jimmy asks if Hamlin was there. Jimmy says Hamlin is making him a chump, but Chuck insists that he's going to get better, go back to work, and pick up where he left off. Jimmy tells him he's sorry. Chuck says he understands that he's looking out for him, but says there's a bigger picture. And he says Howard brought this and hands Jimmy a matchbook. He says he should make up a new name for his firm, and Jimmy says it's his name. Chuck says it's a matter of professional courtesy, and Jimmy has Chuck whose side he's on. His brother says there are no sides. And it's true, there really aren't any sides. He asks Jimmy wouldn't he rather he build his own identity rather than riding on someone's coattails. And Jimmy leaves mad, grabs his stuff from the mailbox. He says out loud, you want to dance, Howard? Let's dance. and he goes to find the shady skaters that tried to scam him because, of course, he realized that he didn't actually hit them, that it was videotaped and everything, so he's gonna use them a little bit. And he tells them they've got business. I feel like this is gonna be something we're gonna see a lot, that he's gonna use people, and it's actually a lot of fun to see. I do have to say, while the show is not fun, there are some very fun aspects of the show. He asks for 30 seconds, says it could be the most profitable 30 seconds of their lives. He tells them about a young guy about their age who lived far away here in a town called Circo, Illinois. He says there he was the man. He says Babe smiled at him and hoped for a smile back. He said they called him Slippin' Jimmy. And this really shows that Jimmy used to be a very different guy. I mean, he used to be very likable. So I'm wondering if we're getting, even though this is in the past, I feel like we're going to get flashbacks of how Jimmy was before, like what happened to Jimmy. Like, because right now you can see that Jimmy definitely is struggling a lot, and you can definitely see that something bad's going to happen to him. So everyone wanted to be his friend, and one asks why that's a cool name, and Jimmy says winter in Illinois is not freezing. He says most folks in Circo were scared of winter, but Slippin' Jimmy knew was Slippin' fall season. And he says when it was cold outside, he found a piece of ice and then wait for people to come, by then fell. My question is this story real, or is he just like getting to them? I feel like it is real. I don't know. I feel like Jimmy used to have a much more successful life, and now he doesn't. So he says he made $6 or $8 grand per fall, and he tells the guys he sees potential and says the skateboards are good. He asked how much they cleared on their best day. They tell him $630, and that was 2 falls. And he says that he has a job for them and offers them 2K for one hit and says they get to learn from the best. He has them outside a driveway, shows them a Mercury Sable wagon. He tells them to burn it into their minds. And he says Betsy Kettleman is the target's name, and says she comes by every day to pick up her kids from the elementary school. He takes them to a corner, tells them how to do it. He tells one to take the fall and the others to get in her face. And this is really funny, definitely. This whole scene was just really funny. He says witnesses are good, and says when he has her wound up, says he's calling an ambulance, but says to call him. He tells him to get up in his face and calls him names. He says after that, back down. He reminds them to act like they don't know him. He wishes them luck and heads out. Jimmy lurks outside Betsy's house and rehearses his speech to work her over. And she pulls out of the driveway. He ducks down out of the way, then calls the idiot skateboarders to warn them. One gets out the video camera while the others get ready to skateboard, and Betsy drives up and the other guy starts out on the sidewalk, veers out, she crashes into him, she drives off. Jimmy checks his phone, then gets a call from the kid who says he took off on them, and he says she pulled a hit and run, so basically, it didn't work. So, he tells him to stay over, but they are following her. He says she's headed to Holiday Park and says to wait on him. He says hit and run is a felony, and he fell into a honeypot. They ask why they need him and hang up the phone, and Jimmy tries to crank his car and calls Lars, the skater kid, back, but he doesn't answer, and he doesn't know why he's not answering. For whatever reason, this kid's not answering, and Betsy pulls up at a house. The skater kids roll up on her, and they confront the woman, but the woman's not Betsy. It's this older Hispanic woman, and she says she doesn't speak English, then waves them to come in. And Jimmy does not know what's going on at this point. He doesn't know why this woman is in English. He knows that something horribly wrong is going on. And he stops in front of the house, sees the cracked windshield, goes to the door and knocks, peeks in the windows, then knocks again, says to open up in the name of the law. The door opens, a gun is put in his face. The guy pulls him into the house, and it's Tuco Salamanco. Yes, Tuco Salamanco was the guy that is in this show now, and I did not see Breaking Bad, but from what my friend told me, Tuco Salamanca is very deadly, and basically Jimmy is in for a lot of shit. Like, it's not going to end well for him, and this is definitely going to end bad, and this is not going to end well for him at all. And I already absolutely love this show. I think the show is absolutely fantastic, guys. I love it. I'm going to talk about some of the things I really do love about it. First of all, the acting in the show is absolutely fantastic. Bob Odenkirk as Jimmy is just awesome. I didn't realize how, I didn't see the Saul episodes of Breaking Bad. I saw the first 2 episodes of season 1, then I saw the finale. So I never really got to see Saul's character. And oh my god, he is so awesome in this show. He's so funny at some points, but he also has some very good dramatic moments. That's one of the things I like about the show, is that's really humanizing him. I mean, in the show, he really was just, I heard he was very funny and just a fun character, but this is a lot, very dramatic stuff with him. I definitely really like about his character. I'm definitely interested in seeing where he's going to go. Now, my question to you guys is, do you think that the story told the kids, is that going to, the story told the kids what exactly is going to happen to him? Now, I do want to say something that I definitely feel is going to happen with this show, and that is that they are eventually going to tie this in to Breaking Bad, definitely. Basically, Basically, they're eventually going to tie us into Breaking Bad because they have to. I mean, they show the end of Saul's character, so eventually they have to tie us into Breaking Bad. I'm very interested in seeing how those ties are going to be. What's eventually going to end up happening to Breaking Bad, how they're going to tie that in there. It's going to be very interesting to see. I'm looking forward to seeing what ends up happening, and because Vince Gilligan, again, he said that Walt and Jesse are not on this season, but they could be in future seasons. So I definitely feel like Walt and Jesse are going to appear at some point, but I don't know when. And I'm looking forward to seeing if they do tie us into Breaking Bad. I definitely feel like by season 2, next season, I definitely feel like they're going to keep it in this time, but eventually they're going to have to tie into Breaking Bad. What was going on at the time when Breaking Bad was going on. In fact, what I'd like to see is have some scenes from Breaking Bad, but show it in Saul's perspective. What was going on when Jimmy was, what was going on when Jimmy was in this scene in Breaking Bad. What was going on there. That's going to be interesting to see. I love Michael McKean as his brother Chuck. I think he's a very interesting character. I mean, he's been forced to quit his job, and it's very, very interesting what's happened there. Basically, I guess he's gonna have a mental illness, so that's gonna be very interesting to see. I'm looking forward to seeing what's gonna happen there. Um, I really Patrick Fabian as Howard, can't really say too much about him. Rhea Seehorn as Kim, I don't know, but I just see her as a love interest for Jimmy. I don't know why. I don't know if he has a love interest in the show, like in Breaking Bad, if he had a wife or whatever. But I just feel like she's gonna end up as a love interest for him. Jonathan Banks, we're definitely gonna see again. I already really like what they're doing with his character. I'm interested in seeing where they're gonna go there, because I know he does have to do with Breaking Bad, so I'm interested in seeing what's gonna happen there. And Michael Mando as Nacho is gonna be interesting to see. Apparently, Betsy and Craig are gonna return. And I gotta say, I love that this show is a 2-night premiere because that cliffhanger is just so big. Saul has no idea Jimmy has no idea what's about to happen to him. And Tuco, seriously, this is going to get huge with Tuco. I don't know what's going to happen to Jimmy, but this is about to get extremely intense. Is Jimmy going to end up bankrupt? I feel like Jimmy is going to end up bankrupt. I don't know why, but I definitely feel like Jimmy, just something about him, the lies that he was telling, what he was saying to Chuck, I definitely feel like he's going to end up bankrupt. I don't know how, but it just seems possible that he could end up bankrupt for me. Is Kim going to become a love interest for Jimmy? That's going to be interesting to see. How else is Tuco going to tie into the show? What other cameos? I heard we're going to see tons of cameos. I definitely feel like the first main cameo we're going to see, I feel like we're going to see Jesse before we see Walt. Definitely, I feel like we're going to see Jesse. In fact, I heard there's a possibility we might see Jesse in season 2, which I hope is true because that could be very interesting if we do. Um, this show made me want to watch Breaking Bad. I might just binge Breaking Bad after this show just so I can, know what's going on more. I would talk more about Breaking Bad, but I can't really say anything about it because I didn't see enough of it. I know what you guys are saying, why didn't you watch it? I don't know. I never binged it really. But I'm interested in seeing what else is going to happen here. I already really love the show. Let me know what you guys saw this premiere overall. I know some people really did not like it, but you guys have to understand this is very different from Breaking Bad. It's not supposed to be like Breaking Bad. It's different from Breaking Bad, and I already love it. So that's my review. Hope you guys enjoy. I'll see you guys in my next video, which will be my review for Shameless. So I will see you guys for that. Okay, bye.